Mike Rosehart is self-acclaimed to be the youngest Canadian retiree. Now, he started at the age of 17 when he decided to change his life around and went from growing up poor, raised by a single parent, and managed to take his family from living below the Canadian poverty line to achieving financial freedom at 24. He will be sharing all about his incredible yet very relatable story with you today during this interview, and he will talk about his journey, what it was like for him, and what his next plans are as a young retiree. He's also a very strong believer that you can absolutely retire no matter your age. Thank you so much for joining me today, Mike.
Thanks for having me. Yeah, I go by like North America's youngest early retiree through frugality and FIRE, because I'm not someone who started with a lot. I came from nothing, and 0.1% of the population, which is thousands of people, I think will become multimillionaires in their young 20s.
Right.
But I think they did it through one-off ventures that most people can't replicate. What I did, anyone can replicate. So I did it through frugality, right? I did it through a proven strategy. I followed the FIRE method that I found when I was 17, right? And I just followed a path for 7 or 8 years, and anyone can do it. I didn't stumble upon some successful entrepreneurial venture like Facebook. I just sort of did it and followed the FIRE path, and I just started really young, and I was really driven towards my goals. So yeah, I guess the title of the qualifier is with frugality and the FIRE aspect.
Now, you started your FIRE journey, right, at a very young age. What exactly triggered you into thinking, you know what, this is the right path for me?
I think for me, it was my upbringing. I moved around a lot as a kid, like a single mom. My brother and I and my mom, we moved around a lot as a kid, and I bounced around from school to school. We were kind of living below the Canadian poverty line, right? So our family income was less than 23,000 Canadian, which is like something, I don't know, maybe 16,000 USD. So that's not a lot to live on. So we were always just struggling to get by, right? And that cycle of like waiting for payday, and then payday times are good, and a lot of my friends might have had who were middle class. So 9 years ago, there wasn't a lot of talk about FIRE. There was this one guy that I found on the internet, Jacob Lund-Fisker, who wrote the book Early Retirement Extreme and had the blog earlyretirementextreme.com. And he was the first person I found. I'm just Googling like financial freedom and understanding how to become financially independent, because I'd worked a bunch of different part-time jobs and things like that at 17. And I thought I hadn't found a job that I really liked. I'm interviewing these people who are successful, business entrepreneurs and people in their 30s and 40s and 50s. And a recurring theme kind of struck with me. These supposed mentors all seemed unhappy. They were making $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 a year. They were millionaires, but they weren't happy. And they couldn't retire because they had extravagant lifestyles, and they were always on their second or third wives. And there was just something for me that just didn't resonate. Like, money is supposed to make you happy, right? It's supposed to be like a oil in your engine to keep things moving smoothly. And I think a lot of what Jacob wrote about on his blog, Early Retirement Extreme, resonated really well with me. So I was just, up at night, I'm on my computer just looking around, and his blog wasn't mainstream, I don't think, at that time. And he was just writing his book, and his book was being released, I think, this is probably 2009, 2010. And I kind of stumbled upon it, and I told my roommate, I was like, I think I can retire at like 29. And like my roommate in college is like, we were 17 at the time. And he's like, what? No, like, this is like, what is this? This is a joke. And I'm like, no, seriously, like, I think what I want to do with my life is retire. And he's like, what? I'm like, yeah, I just want to be like financially free. Like you see on those commercials, those people who just travel and enjoy their lives. They don't ever have to work. But maybe I'll work. It just won't be for money. I'll just do things that I love. He's like, that's silly, man. Like you have to work until you're 65, or in Canada it's 67, to get your pension or whatever, or to work until you've saved up enough, and then you like enjoy your life in the last couple of years. And so I kind of thought that was just not palatable for me, and I don't know. So for me, it was more about finding a way to achieve that, and I sort of dove deep into everything that there was online at the time, which is not a ton, because there was no one on YouTube talking about this like I am today. There was no one writing about this. There were hardly any bloggers. Mr. My Mustache wasn't even blogging. There were no guys out there. I think it was just Jacob waving this flag, and maybe one or two other smaller blogs that were kind of waving the flag. And this early retirement thing, I told my whole family about this. I'm like, what I want to do is like retire. Like, why are you guys trying to retire? You're 40 or 50. You could do this. It's so easy. You just spend less, earn more, and maximize your returns. And that was kind of like the three elements, the three levers that I sort of realized. And that's my catchphrase on YouTube. at the end of every video, because it's just dead simple. You just spend less, earn more, and maximize your returns in that order. Right. Spending less being the most important and most impactful. This consumeristic lifestyle doesn't make you happy. FIRE makes a lot of sense because what it's about is tailoring your life to one where you can do what you want to do with your life. And I guess at 17, that was so powerful. To bring it back to your original question, why at 17 am I doing this and I'm not out there partying and that? Why did I start taking on a job at 17 while I'm in school to start saving and investing? Well, because I realized that every dollar I could save then was worth 10 when I'm 40. So I'm like, wow, if I could save $10,000 now, that's $40,000 when I'm 50, or $100,000 when I'm 60, because the power of compound interest and the power of, and I'm reading about these concepts like compound interest and how money grows and the time value of money and opportunity costs and these basic principles of and tenets of FIRE, where it's so impactful. If you start, the earlier you start, the better off you'll be. And I mean, the best time to start is today. So if everyone's watching and they want to start finding FIRE, today's the best time to do it. You can't change the past, but you can change the future. And it's about focusing on your future and setting yourself up for success. Whether that's you're 35 years old now and you want to set your 40-year-old self up, you can make that choice today. And so I just made that choice, and I said, I grew up in poverty and I don't want that for my family. Someday I'm going to have a family, and actually I have a 2.5-year-old daughter today. I'm glad that my daughter's going to grow up not having to worry about where the next meal's going to come from or worried about like financially, right? Anything. So having that financial independence is great. I can spend more time with my family, with my daughter. Time that most parents can't spend because they're working 8 to 5 every single day. They come home, their kids go to bed at 7. They come home, they're tired. They make some dinner, they go to sleep. That's it. They don't get to spend a lot of time with their kids. And so kids today need love. They need attention. They don't need money. More than anything, they need their parents. And so I really subscribed to that early on. And I think maybe I had a bit more maturity than most because I had to take care of my kid brother. And I guess I sort of had to grow up quick just because of what I grew up with. So for me, it was more, I guess I had some environmental factors that allowed me to appreciate the value of a dollar, learn to live frugally because I grew up relatively frugally. And sort of at that time, I was very driven. And so I made that my laser focus. I made that my goal. I was like, I'm going to be the youngest retiree. I'm going to prove that anyone can do this. And I also love when people tell me no. So all my family, all my friends, all my professors, every mentor I talked to, I told them about this early retirement idea. Like there's this early retirement idea, and I don't mean retirement in the traditional sense. I mean an enriched, awesome life where you do what you want to do. And they're like, that's crazy, Mike. That doesn't happen. That's no. And like multimillionaires would tell me, no, I can't retire. I had mentors tell me who are multimillionaires, I can't retire today. My money would be gone in 10 years. And they didn't understand the basic concepts like the 4% safe withdrawal rate of how to allocate their capital to live just on the interest and have their portfolio grow with inflation. They didn't understand these basic concepts, and despite being wealthy, were actually not able to retire because they had spending problems. Right. So it's very interesting to understand how you can see multimillionaires that aren't able to FIRE or retire because they haven't modified their life in a way that allows them to focus on the things that matter most, which is not consumerism or materialism or stuff. It's about those meaningful connections and finding purpose and chasing that purpose. So I was looking at a mountain and I'm like, this is amazing. I just want to get to the top of this summit. And so for me, it was just a journey, and I didn't let anything else get in the way of that journey. I just worked really hard, and I took a full-time job out of college at 21, and I just grinded, and I started investing all of that income into rental properties. And so I got basically 2 full-time jobs doing the landlording and all that, and sort of built up my wealth by being a very diligent saver.
Great. Now, when you think of retirement, right, what comes to your mind is you think of people who are, old, probably stressed out from working in the labor force, right? Now, how do you explain the concept of FIRE to a person who is a millennial, especially about the insane ideology of retiring early? And also, how did your wife react to the news of you retiring at a very young age?
I think she supports me 100% in a lot of what I've done. She knew that I was an ambitious individual, and she's not of the same cloth as I am. We're different people. She's an arts person. I'm more of a financy, numbers kind of person. That's just who I am and at the core of what I am. And I'm an intense person too. People who get to know me know that I chase things with intensity. When I'm working on a project, I will work harder than everyone else just because I can. It's the cut of cloth I'm from. So I'm just a very hard worker. I think to answer the first part of your question about how do you kind of explain it to friends, I think it comes down to understanding what true wealth is. So is wealth having, if you talk about the actual equation to happiness, and we know if you study in the academia some of the key facets that make up a good, happy, well life, a life where you're full of wellness. It's about spiritual wellness, emotional wellness. There is a component of financial wellness, but it's about having enough, just enough to cover all of your expenses, not have to worry. I'm not talking paycheck to paycheck. I'm talking enough abundance that you're not really worrying about. And most of us crave a purpose or a meaning to our lives. And I think a lot of that can be found in work, but not necessarily in work for someone else for money. I think true meaning and purpose can be found in, like, what I now am financially independent, where my passive income comes in as 3 times what I need to live, my living expenses. So by all definitions, I never need to work another day in my life, even if I increase my spending. So it's to a point now where, what do I want to do with my life when money's out of the equation? So if you ask yourself, what would you do if money didn't matter? Most people wouldn't stay at their jobs. And if you look at the data, 77% of people wouldn't be at their job. So 77% of people aren't pursuing what they want to do. So I'm talking not to 23% who are obviously satisfied in what they're doing, but the 77% who aren't satisfied. And for those 23% who are satisfied, will you always be satisfied? Might your boss change? Might your industry change? Might your interests change? Might you develop as a person into something that you weren't before? The answer is probably. Probably. So plan for the future, regardless. I think everyone can take up a tenet of FIRE, at least 1 or 2 things, but it comes down to understanding wealth, right? And what is true wealth and what is true success? And to me, it's chasing the thing that you love and doing that which you're meant to be doing on this planet. And I think that's where you'll find meaning and purpose. And I often find it's being able to choose how, so it comes down to mastery, autonomy, and purpose, right? So finding that thing that you're good at, having a level of autonomy where you're free to do it in the way that you want to do it and call your own hours. And sort of, if you want to, on a 2 p.m. on a Friday, go for a hike, you can go do that because you're not bound by anything. You just you close your laptop and away you go. Or whatever you're doing, you wrap it up and you can pick it up on Saturday or Monday. It doesn't matter. And then, like I said, mastery, autonomy, and purpose. So not only are you doing something you're good at and having the autonomy to control how you do that, but it's doing something that you find meaning in. So you could be really good at something, but also find meaning in that thing. I was good at consulting. They promoted me to senior analyst. They promoted me again to manager in my job. And I didn't make an amazing salary. I was making 55, 60,000 Canadian a year, which is sort of average. But I was good at what I did. I didn't enjoy it. I didn't find purpose in it, but I was good at it. So that's one element. Obviously, I didn't have all the elements. And so that's why I quit that job in 2017 and around February. You know, YouTube is a way that I give back. So I enjoy creating content, putting that on YouTube. And I also have a company where I help people invest in basically in their early retirement. We buy real estate with them and help them manage them through that process. Those are two, one's a company and one's just a passion. But I do both those work tasks because people come on to me and they DM me on Instagram and like Rosehart, and they say, Mike, you know, you're a fraud. I see you're working on like your YouTube videos. You're coming out 3 videos a week, man. That's a job. And I'm like, but I could just stop tomorrow. Like I don't need to create videos. Now I get a lot of gratification from that. I feel like I'm good at making videos. I have a lot of autonomy and flexibility about how I create that content, when I create it. I have no boss. I just make whatever I want, and it's fulfilling the art component that I really enjoy creating. And then purpose. I think people need to get better at managing their finances. 94% of North Americans don't save. They live paycheck to paycheck, or they're in debt. So that's where I'm trying to have an impact. I think that people get better at managing their finances. They'd have better relationships with their children, better relationships with their spouses. There'd be lower divorce rates. It's the number 1 cause of divorce. People would be happier. They'd be less stressed out. So there's just a whole bunch of, for me, that's wealth, right? Is being able to chase what I love. And so when I ask someone when I'm talking about FIRE, I start with something like that. I find a common ground, something they're interested in. And I say, what is it that you love? And they're like, man, I just love to play video games. Okay, you know, maybe you want to just play video games all day, and that's cool. If that's the way you want to share with the world, do that. But what I'm saying is, to get there, you need to put a plan with reality, right? Like, you have a dream, you want to play video games all day professionally, or whatever you want to do, or even just recreationally. I would argue there's probably more to their life than just that. That's a really shallow answer, and they could probably ask the 5 whys and get a little bit deeper into the structure, but that's for another conversation. I think people could find that the goal would make sense for them. There's definitely a goal there that's not, no one says, I just want to work my whole life and live paycheck to paycheck. Like, that just doesn't sound, that's why FIRE is so attractive, I think, is that true wealth is in freedom. It's in choice. It's in deliberate choice each and every day. And so that's the sell, I think, that you put to people. And that's the sell that I put to my wife. I said, you know, when our daughter is born, or our son is born in the future, when we have children down the line, do you want to have to go back to work? or do you want to spend time with the family? And it was like, put these big goals. Like you could say, you know, if they come home from work and they're dissatisfied in their job, there's an alternative. You don't have to work at this job anymore. If we make a 5-year plan, we get dedicated to this FIRE movement and really pursue all of the pieces of that, then of course we'll have freedom. So you gotta make the goal really big. Maybe they want to do a world trip for a year. Say, hey, you want to travel the world for a year? Let's make this our mission. Let's make a vision board of this trip around the world to every country we want to go to. Maybe it's 50 countries. And we say, this is our goal to get to that mini FIRE. So then you set a 5-year goal. And then I think having that goal in mind and visualizing that goal each and every day makes some of the sacrifice palatable. So having that 50, 60, 70, 80% savings rates, you need to be a little bit more frugal, right? There has to be some sacrifice. You can't go to the bar every night and rack up a huge tab. You have to learn how to drink at home or just drink less. Architect your life in a way that aligns with what your true goals are and what will actually make you happy.
So this one might get you in trouble, right? Claiming to be the youngest Canadian retiree surely raises a lot of curiosity. And what are some of the most frequent questions people ask you?
Sure. So I retired at 24. So the first thing people say is like, did you win the lottery? You just got lucky? Or you had some great returns in your portfolio, or you probably just came from money. It's not possible. You were only 24 I was 24 and a bit when I retired, so I was 24. I think it's the youngest. I haven't found anyone else who's retired at 24 through the FIRE movement, through frugality. Now I've found people online who are wealthy because they've created businesses, but maybe they started at a different place than I started at. I started at the bottom, like with nothing to my name. So to get to where I am today, where I'm a multi-millionaire, you don't even need to be a multi-millionaire to be FIRE. I could FIRE right now on like 700 or 800,000. That'd be more than enough, invested properly. The three biggest things, like I said, one is skepticism, I think is the first one. Like you just don't believe it. So there's a lot of people who just don't believe it. So I might even I've done on posts before on social media where I've showed like investment accounts and bank accounts, and I've been through my properties. I'm like, this is real. Like I'm a real human being and I'm nothing special. I'm just like you. I'm just like the next person. I just made this my goal. And so that's the thing that's unique about me, is that I work really hard. During that time from 17 to 25, I worked 100 hours a week. Most people work 37.5. So I put in 15 years of work in like 7 years, right? Or I probably put like 20 years of work in 7 years. I just worked with more intensity, right, towards my goal. And so that is something that I think, that's the second criticism. First one's skepticism. Second one is he's too extreme. So Mike worked way too hard. I could never work that hard. Mike did this and I could never do that. Like Rosehart's crazy, man. Like that's the feedback I'll get. It's just like, I don't even understand like how you're able to do this. I was just partying and they just don't understand that like they can do it too. If they just made it a goal and they were to study it. I guess I was lucky in some senses that I was born with an interest in FIRE and personal finance. So that was kind of a gift in a lot of ways. And maybe that's part of my upbringing that gave me those gifts. Having grown up with not a lot was a huge motivator. Like I have a fire under me that pushes me and drives me forward, right? It motivates me. So that's a big thing in a lot of ways. It's an advantage. A lot of people grow up poor and they say, the statistics say that if you grow up poor, you end up poor. Typically you end up in the same class that you grew up in, right? I should be theoretically have a negative net worth right now or no net worth at all because my parents, grew up with not a lot of money. And so I guess I defied the statistics in some ways, but I see it as an opportunity if you reframe your perspective. Instead of saying, for me, life sucked, you can say, wow, those other kids who grew up middle class and upper class, they don't have the hunger that I have. They don't have the drive that I have because they haven't had to want. They haven't had to be hungry. And so I think that for me turned into ambition. And so in a lot of ways, like I guess, the third one is luck. A lot of people say, Mike, you wrote the Canadian real estate has done fantastically from 2016 to 2018. It was relatively flat in my market in London, Ontario from 2012 to 2016-ish. It's not like I was, I was fortunate in those early years, I guess. But in the last 2 years, I have been fortunate. The real estate market has done very well. And those people say Mike was just lucky, he invested in real estate at the right time. And they're partially right. Like half of my net worth today is probably a bit of smart planning and getting into real estate and borrowing a lot of money and levering up really well by multi-million dollars in real estate because I convinced banks to lend me money. But part of that was luck. Like it could have went the other way too, and real estate could have dropped. And today my net worth would be, I'd still be financially independent at 24 or 25 at the worst case. It's just I wouldn't have near the abundance that I have today. like I'm 2% safe withdrawal rate. I can withdraw 1.5 to 2% of my portfolio and cover my living expenses. Whereas if I was, not as fortunate and had a good real estate bull market, maybe I would have to withdraw 4% from my portfolio, which is still by definition financially independent. That is the definition of when you're FIRE, is when you reach that 4% safe withdrawal rate, which is basically 25 times your annual expenses if you rework the equation, or 300 times your monthly expenses if you rework the equation even further. That's the biggest thing. People reach out and they say, like, they're just skeptical. They think they can't replicate what I've been able to do, and they can. Like, you can totally unlock financial independence. Anyone can do it in 7 years. If you work full time for 7 years and you follow the principles of being super lean, very frugal in how you set up your situation, maybe you rent hack, maybe you house hack to get your housing costs way down, and then you find a way to live, don't spend a lot on expensive clothing or things like that, right? And so it's finding that middle ground where you're comfortable in how you're living your life, but you're making enough that you can save for the future too. And so finding that middle ground for yourself. And yeah, there's definitely a lot of critics, but there's a ton of support too. Like, for every one critic, I have 10 people who reach out and say, like, Mike, I love what you're doing. You're motivating the hell out of me. I would love to retire at 35. Here's my expenses. Here's where I'm at. How do I trim the fat? How do I get my budget way down so I can retire at 35? And we come up with a solution. We architect it, right? Or someone reaches out and says, Mike, I would love to get investing in real estate. How do I get started? We start watching some videos on YouTube, and I do live streams every Wednesday at 7 p.m. Eastern. And so that's one way I've been working with my core subscriber base, helping them to unlock financial independence. And so a lot of support. As much as there is negativity and skepticism, I think there's a ton of support too. And I think for people who are older who reach out, they just don't see, like, they've already wasted their whole youth. And so maybe they're 50 now and they can't retire and they're just bitter. So there's a little bit of that. 1 in 1,000, I think, are just bitter that they didn't make good choices. And so
how much did you save up before finally quitting the corporate world? And what exactly did you do with the money?
I guess at 17, I probably had about $8,000 I had saved up from part-time jobs when I went to school, Canadian dollars. And so I used that to fund some of my tuition. And I got a lot of really good scholarships, so that really helped a lot. An education in Canada equivalent to mine over a four-year advanced degree would cost you about, living costs, probably $85,000. So I graduated school debt-free. I got through school with no student loans or anything like that, and that was to credit mostly good work practices. So I got a lot of good scholarships. My narrative was really good. I'm a really driven individual, so I got really good marks, and I worked really hard to get good averages and be a well-rounded individual. And I volunteered and was on several committees and tried to spread out my time so that I wasn't just a nerd, right, studying. I had a well-rounded perspective. So when I applied for scholarships, they would see, wow, this individual came from nothing. He's come from nothing. Look what he's able to achieve at 17 or 18. And so that was a big thing, was getting some scholarships to help fund my education. My grandma actually made a deal with me. Not many people know this. My grandma made a deal with me when I was 16. She said, every dollar you save, because she knew I was about saving at that time. Every dollar you save from 16 to your 17 that you save, not that you earn, that you save, I will match it and put it towards your first year's education. So I actually saved everything. I was super frugal. And so I saved like $9,000. So she contributed like $9,000 towards my education. And so she actually contributed to my education a little bit. I didn't get my education paid for. Like, a lot of kids got their parents to pay for even their first and second year, or they were able to live at home. I grew up in a small town that was far away from any good schools, so I had to move out on my own. But one thing I did was frugal living. I found a room to rent, all including all utilities, internet, everything, for $299 Canadian a month. Most people were paying $550. So I just went and found a really affordable place to rent. That helped a lot. It was a really small room, single bed, and I remember just like a desk. It wasn't a great place to live, but it was very, very economical. And then I actually bought my first house at 19. Well, I was in between my second and third year, just before my third year started. Yeah, like a month before my third year started, we bought a house together, my girlfriend and I. And so I kind of used scholarship money to buy the house. And I convinced the bank to lend me money, which is like a feat that no one can do. Like, everyone says, Mike, there's no way you get a loan at 19. But I had good income. I was working a job while I was in school. So I had some good income despite being a full-time student. And I had access to some good lines of credits. As a student, you can go to the banks and get student lines of credits. So I used those to invest in real estate instead of investing in education, which is really good because education has like a 2-year lifespan for economic utility, whereas a house will provide value for a long time. And so when we bought the house, I renovated the house out from a 2-bedroom to a 4-bedroom, and rented all the rooms out. And they covered the mortgage, utilities, property taxes, everything. So I was living from zero. Actually, I was making $200 a month while living in the house with friends of mine who were going to the college. So from 19 onwards, I had no living expenses at all. I just had to make my tuition and books. And I would study with friends, and I would use their books. So I didn't even buy books. I literally studied my last 2 years just using friends' books who lived with me. Like, we took similar classes, and so I would read their books at the library, or and study with them and do study groups. And so I was really economical, super frugal, and working the whole time. So I was working enough money to pay through school, get through it. So I stayed in that house even when I was working full time, and saved nearly 100% of our income. We saved something like 65% of all of what my girlfriend was making, which is like, she works in the arts. She was a graphic designer. So doing like design work and marketing and stuff. And so she worked at the company full time, and she was making around 37,000 Canadian, something like this, I think, maybe 38,000. We were saving most of her income. We were spending maybe 15,000 of her income to live for like our car and for our extra, enjoyments and stuff. But our housing situation was covered entirely because we had the house hacking scenario, where I was set up where the other rooms in the basement apartment was covering all of our living expenses. So that was a really good idea to buy that house early on and use the bank's money to buy that house, because we ended up living there for a long time for free. And what did we save? I don't know, a couple $100,000 in our young 20s, which is an amazing feat, right? To be able to save that kind of money because we were so frugal. So by 23 and a half, I probably saved a couple $100,000 and invested that and did better. And so I guess from 26, maybe $500,000 or something, which is enough. You can actually retire just on that. If you set up a house hacking situation, that's enough to reach FIRE. It's a more lean version of FIRE, because there's so many ingredients of financial independence, retire early, of the FIRE movement. There's like lean FIRE, there's regular FIRE like Mr. My Mustache, there's lean FIRE like Early Retirement Extreme, the book and the blogger, Jacob Lund-Fisker. Then there's more fat FIREs like You Need a Budget, Financial Samurai is a bit more on the fat FIRE side. And then there's different gradients within that as well. There's mini firements. We call it mini firements or mini fires. Yeah. And that's where you work for 6 months, take 6 months off. Work for 6 months, take 6 months off. But if you maintain a 50% savings rate, you make enough in that 6 months to cover yourself in the 6 months that you're traveling or whatever. There's also versions where you work for 5 years, you take 5 years off. A lot of people do a 10 years on, 10 years off. So they'll work their 20s and take their entire 30s off, just take 10 years off to relax and enjoy their life. And that's a version of FIRE. I know a guy who lives really frugally, can work 19 hours a week. So they work half time. They work 2 days a week, and they take 5 days to enjoy their life. That's a version of FIRE in itself, where they've set up a situation where they do exactly what they love. They don't need to work full time to pay the bills, because they've set up a situation where there's sort of a degree of FIRE. Now that's not true FIRE. True FIRE is basically working really hard, saving hard, and save up enough you can live off of passive income forever and not need to work. But there are gradients and degrees of FIRE. Each person's FIRE is different. Some people feel like they need $2-3 million to retire. Other people feel like they need 500,000, or I've even seen 250,000 to retire on, which might not seem like a lot, but if you invest it properly and are very frugal with how you spend that money, it can go a lot further than you might think. So.
Well, those are all great. Those are all amazing points what you've said so far. And if you had to narrow it down, what would you say are your top 3 savings and investment strategies?
It's different for each person, but I think from a saving perspective, you got to think of your budget. So you think about, where am I spending my money? First thing you should do is take a look at where you're spending your money. Track for a month or two where you're actually spending. Add it up. Most people don't track how they spend their money. Housing is 30 to 40% of most people's budget. So that's a big area. That has a big impact. You can learn how to be more efficient with how you set up your housing situation. Maybe you get a roommate. You have a 2-bedroom apartment, you get a roommate. Maybe you get a 3-bedroom apartment, you get 2 roommates. Or you put one on Airbnb and you earn enough money from that it covers the rent and you live there for free. I know people who do that. So maybe you house hack, you buy a house and you buy a duplex or something like that, or you rent out rooms. So there are many situations you can rent places if you have no money to buy a house, or you can't figure out how to buy a house with no money down. You can just rent a place for slightly below market value and put in roommates and things. So that's one, is housing. The second is transportation. Most people are inefficient with how they, especially in North America, with how they set up their transit. Most people in North America have cars, 1 or 2 cars, and they're not efficient about it. They go borrow the money to buy a car that they don't need. It's way out of their budget. That's a big one. So transportation is a huge one here in North America. Those two have the most impact. But the third one is your miscellaneous spending, your variable spending, things that are within your control 100%, like clothing, entertainment, eating out at restaurants and the pub, things like that. So those are the areas where I think people can really maybe go out and have waters or something, right, at the pub, or maybe just get one beer, you know what I mean, or go to a place where there's half price specials and just get 1 or 2 beers and pre-drink at home for $1 a beer or something. You know, find a way to reduce your spending in some way where you can still have the same value. You can find a way to get the exact same enjoyment in your life, but get it for less. So for instance, groceries are a big one. I use an app called Flip here in Canada where I price match all of my groceries. And so I get the same lettuce as someone else, or the same vegetables, or the same, you know, bread as someone else, but for $1 when they're paying $3. So it's just about getting the exact same quality of life for half the price. So that's on the saving side. Those are the quick 3 tips, right? It's just look at your budget, pick those three big items. I recommended a couple that I think are big for most people. So investing strategies would be, for me, I think the average person doesn't have the interest in personal finance. So they're not going to want to like look at income statements and balance sheets for a company. Most people are just going to want to buy something, set it, and forget it. So that's why exchange traded funds, ETFs, they're low cost, low management expense ratios. They're way better than mutual funds. You can go buy them on the open indexes. Your financial advisor can help you buy them, but I recommend not using a financial advisor, just buying them yourself. Go pick out, you can go read some articles like the Yale Swanson portfolio, or there's a whole bunch of studies done where they pick 10 good ETFs. Basically, an ETF is an exchange traded fund. It's run by a computer for the most part, and they buy into a certain type of asset class. So you could have an ETF that focuses on North America, and they just own small percentages of thousands of companies. You could have one that's a BRIC ETF, so Brazil, Russia, India, China. If you own a small percentage of every company in the whole world, fractal ownership, you put $100 in an ETF, and they'll divide that out, and you'll own pennies in each different company on every single index in the whole world. If you're diversified really well, and you own small percentages of every type of company everywhere, you should get about a 6 to 8% return. That's a safe way to invest. That's probably the best way to invest, to not lose. Because the most painful thing is losing money. If every dollar you lose in this, or every 10% drop in stock price takes 20% to come back. Think about that. If your portfolio dropped 50%, you need 100% growth to come back to where you were before, to come back to level. So losses are the most painful thing that can happen as an investor, because you need double the gains to come back just to break even. So once you start losing, you start buying individual stocks, and people start losing money because they're not experts, they're not professionals. It's just not a smart strategy. So unless you have that expertise or that interest to really dive into it, I would say don't buy individual stocks. Don't build your own portfolio. Unless I truly believe if you have the interest in it and you want to go learn, you can learn. It's not that hard to learn how to analyze a company. The second thing is real estate. I love real estate. It's tangible, it's physical. The best part about real estate is, I mentioned earlier in this segment, you can borrow from a bank. You put 20% down payment, and the bank will put up the other 80% as a form of a mortgage. Mortgage debt is good debt. All other debt is bad debt. Good debt is tied to an asset that produces cash flow that pays the debt for you. Cars don't pay the debt for you, right? They just depreciate in value and they produce no cash flow. But a house, you can rent it out. It produces income that more than covers the mortgage and puts money in your pocket. So each and every month, they're paying the mortgage for you, the tenants, right? Or the people on the property. So that's where I think it's good debt. You want to use debt to your advantage, and it's cheap. The cheapest place you can get debt is against real estate. It's the most secured asset in the world. People will lend at 3% all day long against real estate. Against businesses or other types of assets, they'll charge you 6, 7, 8% interest rate. So you can borrow the cheapest against real estate. That's why it's so great. And basically, when you borrow 5 to 1, you put $1,000 in real estate as a down payment. That'll buy you a $5,000 property. So you have that $4,000 spread, right, or free bank money. So you're getting to control a $5,000 asset for $1,000 put in. Same is true for $100,000 put in. You can control a $500,000 asset. So that's really, really important, I think, in making sure that you can grow your wealth really quickly. Real estate's a great way to do that. Of course, real estate's not for everyone. We all touch real estate in some way. We all rent a place. We all have somewhere we have to live. So some people say, I'm not interested in real estate at all. That's not true. You're interested in real estate in some capacity. Maybe it's just by getting a roommate. You're still interested in real estate. You have to post that place. You have to find a roommate. You have to collect the rent, pay the rent to the landlord. Everyone touches real estate in some way. So there's a way that you can involve real estate in your life to better your life. And so I guess the third way you can invest would be, I guess those are the two best ways to invest that I think of. There's a lot of other ways. You could lend people money. You could do peer-to-peer lending and stuff like that. I'm a big fan of that kind of stuff. Microloans to people. Higher risk, but you can get good returns. The most important thing is don't lose in investing, because you want your growth to compound, right? And losses compound twice as painfully as gains. So just keep that in mind here.
People want to retire, but they're so concerned about, healthcare and all of those things. What does your healthcare and tax plan look like?
For me, I live in Canada. So Canada, like most of our healthcare is free, or not free. We pay for our taxes. We have very high tax rates, and they pay for most of our healthcare. Not all of it. Like if you need medications, you have to pay for those out of pocket. People underestimate how far cash will go, how you can negotiate on deals. I go into a pharmacist and I negotiate with a cash price, and I say, look, I don't have an insurance plan, which is true, I don't today. And we needed some medication for my daughter. It was like $200 the other day, actually, very recently. And I was able to negotiate this $200 and something medicine for $99 cash. So that's an example where they mark medicine way up because the insurance company's paying for it, they don't care. So the system's very corrupt. Insurance plans are fairly bad. My old employer work plan, I had to pay like $60 a paycheck into it. So I was paying $120 a month anyway for my health plan through my work. They were docking my pay $40 to $60 every paycheck towards a health plan. I don't spend near that much on actual medications. So what I found is that the health plans cost more than they're worth. They're really valuable in high-risk situations. So if you have a heart attack and it's going to cost you like a $200,000 bill. Thank God I don't live in the United States, because in Canada, you'd get free treatment. So the advanced treatments, like the more specialized surgeries and things, cost you money in Canada, and medications cost you money in Canada. And so you have to budget for those things. And I personally keep $10,000 set aside for those types of things in my portfolio of like extremely liquid, sitting in a savings account at like 3% interest rate. And so it's still growing with inflation, it's still making me a little bit of money, but it's there if we need it as our emergency fund for those types of things that happen. The biggest loss when people get sick is they can't work. But for me, I don't need to work. So I don't feel the greatest loss when I get sick anyway, because I'm not relying on that income. That's where most people suffer, right, is the loss of income when they get sick. But I don't have that issue. So healthcare is not a big thing. Like people in the FIRE community, if you can read about it, what people do in the United States and different countries across the world, it's not as big of a thing as people think. And most of us who live the FIRE lifestyle are relatively healthy. We don't tend to have heart attacks because we're pretty relaxed. We don't tend to have near as many rates of cancer because we eat better food, we eat more healthfully, and we enjoy our lives more. So the actual, I don't know if the data supports this, but I would assume that people living this quality of life tend to have lower health risk. We tend to be more fit. So we have time to go for hikes and walks. We're not sitting at a desk all day eating cheeseburgers. We're going out and enjoying our lives. So I think that we tend to live healthier lifestyles, and if you subscribe to the FIRE lifestyle and you live a healthier lifestyle, you're going to be sick less often. So that's something. That's something to kind of think about when you're planning out for your health. But you could just get an insurance plan and build it into your budget. You could say, I'm going to get an emergency plan with a $5,000 deductible. So I only claim this plan only kicks in if the cost is more than $5,000 for this medical treatment. And it's there for emergencies, like you have a heart attack or a brain aneurysm or something crazy, or your arm gets cut off. Those types of things, that's where it's there. And you pay that $100 and something a month. That's what people do. They find an affordable healthcare provider that provides that emergency insurance for those higher things, not for small drug plan purchases, but for those emergencies. And it tends to be a lot cheaper for the insurance because it's only there for those emergencies that almost never happen. So the insurance company spreads that risk over many different people. And what I'd say is build that in your budget. $100 a month or $200 a month for insurance. Maybe it's $5,000 to $10,000 a year. That's not that much money, really. I know people that get a lot cheaper plans than that even. Guys like Early Retirement Extreme have talked about it. Mr. Red Mustache have talked about U.S. health plans. And the second part is taxes. So taxes are not near as big of a problem for early retirees than it is for people who are in the working world. Because for instance, in most countries, if you're below the poverty line, you don't pay any tax at all. In almost every country, your tax rate's almost nothing if your income's low. So imagine if you're lean FIRE or you're retired early, you're not working a full-time job and you're not needing to save anymore. So you just need to bring in enough income to cover your living expenses, which from your portfolio is likely set up in tax-efficient accounts because you have it in investment accounts or in real estate, which are tax-efficient. So you have write-offs, or you're in tax-efficient accounts, so you have additional tax advantages that's set up for people to withdraw in retirement. Most countries have systems set up that retirees don't pay near as much tax as the working class. So in Canada, for instance, you can bring in $50,000 a person in dividend income, just in dividend income. Dividends are paid out by companies. Companies pay out profits through a dividend every quarter or every month or every year, or semi-annually. Most it's quarterly. But let's say they pay out dividends, right? You hold a bunch of companies, a bunch of stocks, and they all pay you a dividend portfolio, or an ETF portfolio pays you a dividend. In Canada, two individuals, so like maybe two partners, each can bring in about 50,000 in dividends tax-free. Because the companies, the corporate companies, have already paid tax, usually at like a 30% rate. And so the Canadian government says individuals, and this is the same in the United States, it's the same in many countries across the world, where what you'll find is just a gross up. So if the individual's tax credit rate is lower than the company's, you get a credit back up to a certain amount for dividend income. So there's an incentive to invest in companies to get the dividends back, especially if they're in Canada. It's if you invest in Canadian companies. So Canadian companies will pay you back in dividends, and those dividends are basically tax preferred. So you can, like I said, bring in 50,000 a person, $100,000 a year tax-free in Canada. That's an example where I know some retirees who bring in 50 grand a year, almost tax-free. So tax is not an issue when you're retired. A lot less of an issue than people might think if you architect the right scenario.
Now, what advice would you give to our viewers who want to sort of FIRE? Where should they start from? What should they avoid? What should they look out for?
I would say the exact same thing that I say on the last 125 YouTube videos. It's the end phrase that I use at the end of every single video, and that's spend less. Now, in order to unlock wealth through you need to spend less, earn more, and maximize your returns in that order of importance. Most people want to start the opposite. They want to start with, like, I want 1,000% rate of return with cryptocurrency trading, or, I want to earn more money. No one talks about saving, becoming frugal, right? But you don't build wealth with great returns. You don't build wealth with high income. You build wealth saving. You have to save for your net worth to increase. The equation is income minus all of your income sources minus all of your expenses equals your delta or change in your net worth. So if you want to actually, and net worth is what you're worth. That's all of your assets minus all of your liabilities. So every asset you own minus all the debts that are owed against those assets. So at the end of the day, what you want, real wealth, is in net worth, not in income. There are people who I know people who make $1 million a year, but have $1 million in expenses every year. They save nothing. Their net worth is zero. If their job disappears tomorrow, they have nothing. They're poor. They're actually poor, but they make $1 million a year. So you can be very poor if you have high income. You can be I always say this too, 1,000,000% growth, 1,000,000% growth, it's the highest growth you could ever have. Infinity growth on zero is still zero. So if you aren't saving, it doesn't matter how well you're growing. If you're investing $100 in cryptocurrency, it's way less impactful than investing thousands of dollars that you've saved, right? So saving is way more important than earning. In fact, every percentage, here's my takeaway for the group, everyone listening, every percentage you save for your income, so if you go from saving 10% of your income to 11% of your income, that is more impactful than getting a 10% rate of return to an 11% rate of return. Every percentage of income you save is more impactful than every percentage of rate of return that you get. So most people are trying to go from 6% rate of return, which is the average portfolio, to 12%. They want to be double as good as the average person. They'd be way better off going from 6% of their income saved to 12% of their income saved than they would be spending their time trying to become better investors. Now, I'm saying you should try to do all three. That's why I say in this order: spend less, earn more, and maximize returns. Because all three, if you can master them, you'll be laughing. You'll be all good. So that's sort of the takeaway: is in that order. Learn to spend less, start to save, learn to earn more, so you get the gap between what you're earning and what you're saving, right? Because the gap is what you're saving, right? You're spending here, you're earning here. You want to grow your earnings, you want to drop your spending. So if the gap gets really, really big, the bigger the gap, the more wealth you're building, and that's where you actually unlock FIRE. That's where you build real wealth that has life-changing impact.
And finally, you have been amazing all throughout this interview, but I want to know, you've turned 26 and you're financially independent. What is next for Mike Rosehart?
It's a great question. I think it's gonna change as my desires and growth mindset changes. Right now, I'm trying to have an impact on people's lives in a big way. So I would like to my channel has 4,000 subscribers, so it's just a really young channel. That said, 4,000 subscribers are super core following. Almost all of them reached out to me. So I've made some really great, meaningful connections and impacts. And I'm so thankful for all these people who are joining me on this journey and whose lives I'm able to change each and every day, and who are changing my life for the better too. So I'm super thankful for my core following. I think I'd like to get to a point where I can have a really big impact, where I can talk to a camera and have 100,000 people watch my video. Like I can have 100,000 lives change. So that's the next step, is going from where I am now to basically just saying the same things that I'm saying now but just saying them in a more eloquent manner, I think that's going to target more of the masses. Because financial literacy is so important. Like, no one has financial literacy down. No one's pushing it. The school system isn't pushing it. The youth today, the Gen Zs and the millennials, really every generation needs some financial education. And so that's a big thing for me. That's a big push. And I have a real estate investing company too, where I help people invest in real estate in London, Ontario. I help them buy, like I actually buy the real estate with them, we partner. And I manage everything, so they don't have to do a thing, they just put up the capital. And I've had a lot of fun with that. We've made our investors hundreds of thousands of dollars in the last few months. And so making people money feels really good. Helping other people unlock their early retirement, financial independence. So people are calling me if, you know, they're halfway to their FIRE goal, and we take them from 500,000 to $1 million. And so that's been really fun. It's cool because the reason I started this company was to have a meaningful impact in two ways. One, help people unlock financial independence, help them be able to retire early and create passive income for themselves that's truly passive and gives you way higher returns than you can get in the market. The second was I really like the idea of having a business where I can employ my friends and family. And sorry about we're doing a little bit of renovation here, so you're hearing the drills and stuff. But the second point, right, the first was helping people to basically unlock financial independence, retire early through passive income that is truly passive. They don't have to worry about managing the properties. And then the second thing was really, I wanted to create a business where I could bring my friends in and employ them. And so that's been a big thing as we build this business and bring in income, because we share in the profit with the investors. I take all of that and I haven't drawn a salary. I draw no salary. I draw no dividend, nothing right now. I'm reinvesting it back into all of what I'm earning is being reinvested back into the people that work for me. And so that's been a big thing, is providing people with good living wage that are like my contractors and my property managers and people working in the company and that sort of thing. I'm a big believer in giving back. And so I have a lot of friends that I want to bring from jobs that they hate into my company to work with me. I just provide them a better standard of living. So it's been fun. I had some friends who were like, man, I hate my job. Well, now as a business owner, I can provide them a job that might be a little more enjoyable and pay a little bit better. So that's been something that kind of I've been enjoying. Those are two things that I'm going to continue to do in the future. Travel too. I'm going to do some more traveling in the near future once my daughter's a little bit older.
I had so much fun having you here with me, Mike, and thank you so much for sharing your incredible story and journey with the rest of the world through our channel.
Thanks for having me on the interview. I really appreciate it.
So guys, check out his blog 25andfree.com for more on one of the youngest retirees in the world who achieved this through frugality. And don't forget to like this video, share with your friends, and comment down below what you picked up from this interview, and subscribe because I'll be seeing you very soon.